So Chase the Doolies main just uploaded a new video about Kraken Royale, which I was pretty excited about. You know, I'm a 96 main, I have well over 1,000 wins with the Deco kit. I like to think I understand Kraken better than the average person, and this was like the first semi-analytical video about the special since it came out back in 2023. So I was eager to see what they had to say. And full disclosure, I've watched this video a few times by now, and I can confidently say it's bad. It's really bad. Just the fact, just about everything Chase says in this video is wrong in some way, and really sells the idea that he's never actually used Kraken for more than, let's say, 30 minutes. And that's supported by the fact that he had to ask his viewers for Kraken clips in order to get enough footage for this video, when it's like, if you just played the special, you could have gotten your own footage to show off all these things you talk about. But regardless, whatever, that's besides the point. I just wanted to go through this video and break down everything he says bit by bit, and just kind of give a second opinion from the perspective of someone who has hundreds of hours of experience with Kraken. So yeah, let's do it.
Let's talk a little bit about Kraken Royale. When this special was announced to be returning to Splatoon 3, I was really excited. I always loved using this special in Splatoon 1, so to see it make a comeback in the newest game was super hype. Keyword was, as since that day, my and many others' opinions of this special has declined faster than the Tetradoolies usage rate in the meta. Kraken has a load of problems, some of which aren't talked about enough in my opinion. So I wanted to go over that today. If you enjoy the video, please give it a like and subscribe if you want to see more like it. So I know what you're thinking. Chase, Kraken just got its most annoying aspect about it nerfed, so why are you still complaining? It is true that Kraken's Clam Blitz cheese was an absolutely asinine feature that basically ruined the mode. Like, I really don't get how that made it into the game in the first place, and I also don't get how it took so long for that to get patched out.
So concerning the issue of Kraken cheese, you know, doesn't exist anymore. So there's really no point in bringing it up in this video. But okay, let me humor him. How does Kraken cheese even get into the game? A lot of people will probably get mad at me for saying this, but the devs over at Nintendo are smarter than we realize. They definitely think of a lot of things that we think just fly over their heads. And I'm positive they were aware that you could use Kraken like this to cheese Clam Blitz before they even added the special to the game. If I had to guess, and this is purely speculation on my part, but I think their reasoning for not removing it sooner was because they figured players would adapt to the strategy and learn how to play around it, because there is some genuine counterplay to Kraken cheese. The opposing team needs to have clams in order to jump in for cheese to be worth it, right? So you just gotta play the economy a bit more than, or play the economy more than you otherwise would. Which means you have to really maximize the potential point gain from each of your pushes. You got to go for a few big pushes instead of a bunch of frequent little pushes, because you want to give the opposing team as few pity clams to work with as possible. The counterplay to Kraken cheese isn't how you play against the Kraken itself, it's how you play the mode in general. And for some people that's not good enough to be considered real counterplay, but I think that's what Nintendo's thought process was and why it took them so long to remove Kraken cheese. Because they were really hesitant to actually pull the plug on it until they realized enough was enough and that, you know, things weren't going to change anytime soon. So in the most recent mid-season patch, they finally pulled the plug on it. I want to stress that I agree with Chase here. Kraken cheese was really dumb, and I'm glad that it's gone. But Kraken cheese wasn't the game-ruining strategy a lot of people make it out to be, and the fact that he's even bothering to complain about it in this video after it was already removed is just silly in my opinion.
But it did eventually get patched, so what am I still complaining about? Guys, if you ask me, Kraken has a lot more problems than just Clam Blitz cheese. So let's go over them. Let's start with the obvious. I won't dwell on this for too long because everyone says this. It's a special that lets you turn invincible, allows you to move anywhere freely regardless of paint, and can also one-shot opponents with a massive hitbox. I don't think that was a particularly great idea. In Splatoon 1, Kraken was annoying, but it wasn't this bad. The hitbox was much smaller, making it easier to juke and dodge it. You could also shoot the Kraken to hold it back, which was kind of important. In Splatoon 3, the new charge attack overrides any bullets that are fired at the Kraken, making you be able to push anyone freely.
This is just an outrageous thing to say. The Kraken in Splatoon 1 was smaller and had no dash attack, but the trade-off was that it had no startup, no end lag, was way faster, could be made even faster with swim speed up, and the jump attack killed in one hit, meaning you didn't actually need to predict enemy movement to get kills with it. What made Kraken even worse to play against, in my opinion, was the fact that it was everywhere, right? In Splatoon 3, we only have 5 Kraken weapons, soon to be 6 with CRB coming into the game soon. But in Splatoon, like, half the weapons in the game had Kraken kits. It was everywhere. Kraken was a far stronger special in Splatoon 1, and also a far more unhealthy special because it encouraged selfish usage and solo plays. Splatoon 3's Kraken being more committal and harder to score picks with consistently due to it being slower overall, and that jump attack no longer killing in one hit, means it's more well suited to team pushes. Even the idea that the dash invalidates one of Kraken's biggest weaknesses, the fact that high fire rate weapons can knock it back, is untrue, because the dash has weaknesses of its own. The dash needs to be charged, can't be cancelled once the zero button is released, and can't clear ledges quickly, and also can only go in a single direction. All of these limitations make the dash easy to anticipate and dodge, which is why the Kraken user needs to get creative and predict enemy movement to score picks with it most of the time, which is hard to do consistently. You can't slow down the dash as much because it's immune to knockback, but it's far easier to dodge the dash. Ideally, Kraken users want to rely on the dash as little as possible. You should really only use it when picks are already lined up for you, so no predictions actually required. The basic movement of a Kraken and the basic jump attack are far more reliable for scoring picks with, because there's less prediction required to land it. But it's a lot slower and more vulnerable to knockback. So there's pros and cons to both forms of movement of Kraken, and Kraken users need to understand those pros and cons and know when it's better to swim instead of dashing, and vice versa, which raises the skill ceiling and skill floor compared to the Splatoon 1 Kraken. I've rambled on for a while, but to say Splatoon 1's Kraken wasn't as frustrating to play against because it had more counterplay is blatantly untrue. Contrary to what Chase says here, like, the Splatoon 3 Kraken is far easier to juke out and dodge. It might be harder to keep stalled with a knockback because of the dash, but that's because Kraken Royale is a different special than the Splatoon 1 Kraken. It's like he's trying to counter this rework special, or like, yeah, he's trying to counter this rework of a Splatoon 1 special the same way you would in Splatoon 1, but it's not gonna work, and he's getting frustrated because he's all like, oh man, like, why isn't it working? This is what you used to do, but the Splatoon 3 Kraken's a different special than the Splatoon 1 special. You can't expect the same strategies to work against it. Like, I think the mistake he's making is that he's looking at these two specials as if they're the same thing. But honestly, these two different versions of Kraken are so different mechanically that it's kind of unfair to even compare them unless you're doing it for the explicit purpose of pointing out how different they are.
As a result of this, plus the special's invincibility, there's really nothing you can do sometimes. The only real counterplay is to just run away and wait it out, which is so lame.
Actually, a really good counterplay to a Kraken user is to pressure them enough that they feel the need to pop Kraken out of self-preservation at an inopportune time. Best case scenario, you kill the Kraken and start up, cancel the special altogether, but even if you don't, forcing the Kraken out at a bad time means the Kraken user won't have their special later when they'd actually want to use it for something useful. Again, there's this idea that the only valid form of counterplay is being able to kill the special user while their special was already active, and obviously you can't do that with Kraken, since it's invincible, but being able to kill the special user when their special was active is not the only valid definition of counterplay. Like, this is just really close-minded and petty in my opinion.
You can try to juke the Kraken to avoid it, but that can be pretty hard to do for one reason. I know that this is going to be an extremely hot take, but in my opinion, Kraken Royale's lag is even more annoying than the Clamblitz cheese was. What do I mean exactly? I'm talking about how a Kraken can jump or perform its charge attack, not even be anywhere close to where you are, and you still die to it. What's really annoying about this is that it happens constantly. It's not a rare occurrence. It's just frustrating because a lot of times you feel like you just outmaneuvered a Kraken, only to still die to it because of the game's poor netcode. And just because I know someone's going to say this in the comments, no, this isn't just a problem with my internet. I've seen plenty of videos and streams where this happens to other players as well. This is a universal issue.
Actually, I'm pretty sure it is just you, bro. I've been a competitive Splatoon player for, a year and a half by now, and for most of that time, I've been a Kraken user. I've heard a lot of people complain about a bunch of different things, and I have never once heard anyone complain about laggy Krakens, and I'm putting big air quotes around that statement. Like, in my hundreds of hours of Kraken experience, I've never seen anything close to the lag being shown in this clip. And like, genuinely, how does this even happen? Maybe if you're playing Splatoon on McDonald's Wi-Fi in the parking lot while you're in the middle of Quinat, Texas, but to most people, lag this bad just doesn't occur. And if it does, the game's probably about to camera you and everyone else in the room, so it doesn't even matter. Like, he makes this out to be the big problem everyone associates with Kraken, but like, I've never, ever have heard anyone even suggest the idea that Kraken is hard to play against because the netcode makes it harder to dodge. Like, what are you talking about, bro? Maybe, and this is just speculation on my part, maybe every now and then, there's a situation where like, you feel like you should have barely dodged the Kraken, but you still died to it anyways because it like scraped by you on the side, and it's easy to be like, oh man, how did that hit me? But it's worth noting that the hitbox on Kraken is a bit more generous than the model would suggest, which is totally fair, I might add. A lot of specials work like that. The hitbox on Zuka, for instance, is infamously inaccurate to what it actually looks like. But laggy Krakens like this outrageous just don't occur naturally, and I could say that because in my hundreds of hours and well over 1,000 games of Kraken, I have never seen anything even close to this. Even the comment section on this video is full of people calling him out on this, and the fact that Chase positions this as his main thesis as to why Kraken is an unhealthy special really emphasizes the idea that he just doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. Also, why is this lag a problem with Kraken in particular? Like, players getting undeserved kills because of lag is not a problem unique to Kraken, so why bring it up in this video about Kraken? Again, I've heard people complain about this game a lot, and lag is a very common issue cited with Splatoon 3. In all my time as a competitive player though, I've never heard anyone complain about laggy Krakens. Laggy rollers? Sure, that's a common one. Laggy chargers? You know, dime a dozen. Laggy splooshes? Every now and then, like, you know, common stereotypes. Laggy Krakens though? Never! You'd think if this problem was really as common as Chase makes it out to be, you'd hear people talk about it all the time, but you don't because this just isn't a real problem of the special. Maybe just once. Chase got murked by a really laggy Kraken, and he took it so personally that he decided to make this video just so he could complain about it. But even then, what does the lag have to do with Kraken? You're mad at the netcode, dude, not the special. No matter how you look at it, this point is just terrible. I'm sorry. Jesus Christ.
While Kraken's objective cheese got nerfed in Clan Blitz, it still has cheese potential in the other modes too, and people seem to forget about that a lot. Not so much in Splat Zones, but in Tower Control and Rainmaker, this special can be such a buzzkill. In Tower Control, they did nerf its ability to stay on the tower and get points, but it's still doable if you just position right. It's also super good for defense in this mode, since you can literally just pop Kraken, charge in by yourself, and either force everyone to get off of the tower and run away, or kill them.
Not really. Maybe to score a few cheesy points if you're really desperate, but for the most part, you really shouldn't be using the Kraken on TC, because if someone just looks at you funny, you get sent flying. Even on defense, this really only works if there's some high ground next to the tower that lets you hop onto the tower from above, because otherwise, trying to climb up the tower from the side whilst in Kraken usually doesn't get you very far, since as soon as you crest the top of the tower and try to flop back down on top of the tower, you get knocked back by anyone shooting you.
Sure, a couple other specials can do that too, but Kraken is worse because 1, it lasts longer, and 2, people have to be more cautious and space themselves from it because of its extremely laggy hitbox and unpredictable movement, like I mentioned earlier. And 3, you're vulnerable when using those other specials.
Another outrageously bad take, when it comes to GG specials and tower control, Kraken is one of the worst in the game, because again, if anyone shoots you just once, you're not staying on the tower. To say it's worse because Kraken lasts longer is also untrue, because a strike user can simply space out their 3 strikes to maximize the duration of area denial, and Booyah, Whale, Missiles, and Rain all last long enough by default to force anyone off the tower anyways. Even the idea that, oh, Kraken is invincible while a strike user isn't entirely fair, because the strikes or Booyah user can just, or really whatever, like all the other specials can be used on the tower from a safe distance, but the Kraken needs to rush the tower, and most of the time when they try to do so, they get sent flying off. Like in this last clip, right? This last clip where the Kraken dives onto the tower, if like this team that lost here went to like VOD review, they're talking about like, oh man, what could we have done differently? Like, there's no way this team is thinking to themselves, oh man, you know, it was just an unwinnable situation. GG Kraken, it's too powerful. No, if like literally anyone shoots the fucking Kraken here, they probably still lose because they have a whole checkpoint to go. But like, they definitely don't lose the Kraken, that's for sure. Like, This was a really bad play on the part of the Kraken, and it happened to work out beautifully, because no one decided to just fucking shoot him.
Rainmaker cheese is a bit harder to pull off with Kraken, since it requires some pretty good team coordination, but it definitely happens. Just have the Rainmaker be right next to the Kraken while pushing. Since Kraken is invincible, it basically serves as a free mobile shield for the Rainmaker. I know, Inkvat can do that too, but that special at least has a janky hitbox and can also be killed from behind.
I mean, yeah, this is something you can do. Have the Rainmaker carrier swim inside the Kraken and you could score some free points, sure. Although I would like to mention that this is incredibly finicky and difficult to do consistently, and in most cases, I would argue you're better off using the Kraken to go in front of the Rainmaker and to clear some space so the Rainmaker can push forward safely. Aside from maybe pushing through uninkable slicks a bit easier, surfing a Kraken really isn't that useful in this game. In these days, hardly any Rainmaker maps played in comp even have slicks in them. Eeltail Rainmaker is the only big one I could think of, and that is really not played that much in comp anymore. I guess Undertow used to have a really, brutal choke point that was on a slick before the rework, but after the rework, that slick got removed, so now that point's kind of rendered moot. Rainmaker cheese is nowhere near as big of an issue as he's making it out to be. Aside from, last-second desperation plays similar to sitting on the tower with it, you probably shouldn't be using it much.
You can argue that this objective cheese that I just discussed isn't a huge deal, and maybe. Compared to the Clan Blitz cheese, it's definitely not as bad, but it still happens frequently enough at higher level play to warrant calling it out. So yeah, in a nutshell, a large portion of the competitive community agrees that Kraken is in need of some more nerfs.
No, most of the competitive community isn't talking about Kraken. In fact, most players seem to think the special was dead and now that its best application in Clan Blitz was just taken away. So saying it definitely needs more nerfs is just an outrageous thing to say, in my opinion.
Even after getting rid of the Clan Blitz cheese. I mean, personally, I think bringing the special back as a whole was just a mistake.
Except earlier in this very video, you said you were very excited about it returning. You can't have it both ways, man. You can't be like, oh man, Kraken's coming back, it's gonna be so hype, only to pull a 180 after you end up not liking it and saying, yeah, I always knew bringing Kraken back would be a mistake. I don't know what the devs were thinking. That's some pro-charish levels of gaslighting, dude. Come on.
Well, anyway, we're stuck with Kraken for the rest of the game's life, so what changes could they make to make it a little more fair? I think simply allowing bullets to hinder the Kraken's charge attack would go a long ways. I'm not saying it should completely halt it, but maybe drastically slow it down.
This is a common idea you hear from people who have never used Kraken before, and it wouldn't fix much. All this would really do is make Kraken's worst matchups even worse for it, making this relatively difficult to use and inconsistent special even harder and more inconsistent. Matchup-dependent specials like Inkvac and Ultra Stamp tend to be on the weaker end of specials, so making Kraken more similar to them is the opposite of making it healthier. This would also ruin the fun of playing against Kraken in my opinion. Stalling out a Kraken's special duration, using nothing but creative movement in mind games, is one of the most satisfying things you could do in Splatoon 3. And if you make it more vulnerable to knockback, that counterplay would be replaced by just standing still and pumping bullets into it. Man, this game is so much fun.
I also think they should revert the swim speed buff they gave it a while back. I really don't know why that was necessary. It uses its charge attack most of the time anyways.
That buff was actually a huge deal for Kraken, as faster base swim speed makes it easier to get consistent value out of the special. Like I said before, the dash is inherently inconsistent for getting picks, since it's linear, needs to be charged, and can't be cancelled prematurely. It requires you to predict enemy movement in order to score picks with it. Increasing the base swim speed means Kraken users can use their base movement abilities like squid rolls and jumps to catch up with fleeing targets much easier, meaning the special is less reliant on hard reads and more about outmaneuvering your target with creative movement. If you were to revert this buff, the special would go back to being a boring dash fest, where all people would do is spam dashes over and over and hope to cut off their opponents with a lucky dash, which is fun, no doubt. I like predicting enemy movement as much as the next guy, but the best Kraken users know to find a healthy balance between swimming and dashing, so that faster swim speed is actually vital to why it's so good right now. To say, oh, it doesn't really need that faster swim speed because Kraken is all about the dash anyways, demonstrates a real lack of understanding and a lot of inexperience of the special.
There's a few more things they could do, but those are the major issues with it in my opinion. I'd love to just say that I wish they could make it less laggy, but that's not something that I think is really in the devs' control right now. But all that aside, I want to hear from you guys. How do you feel about Kraken Royale? Do you also think it's lame and cheap?
No. I think Kraken is a fun, well-designed special that has the potential to make some seriously big plays if you know how to use it. And the only way to learn how to use it is by putting in a lot of time, effort, and practice into it. 3 things that Chase clearly hasn't done. This video to me really feels like Chase had some experiences playing against Kraken recently, and just wanted an excuse to complain about it because those experiences happen to be negative ones. Because otherwise, this is just not a valid critique of the special. Pretty much everything he says has this vibe of, I don't know what I'm talking about, but I'm still gonna say it as if I'm the foremost authority on the special, which is an attitude that's becoming more and more common within this community. Everyone thinks they know everything about everything, even things they have limited experience with, but that's just unrealistic. What especially pisses me off about this video is that now is like the worst time to upload this. Kraken Cheese has just been removed from the game, and I, as a Kraken user, am genuinely thrilled about that, because it means Kraken finally gets a chance at redemption. Now is the time to educate people that Kraken can still be a very good special outside of cheese strategies, but instead this video is telling people Kraken is still lame and you should feel bad for using it. It just got a major nerf, but you know what? I think it needs even more nerfs. Like, he's effectively kicking the special when it's already down, when it's already at its lowest point, which just isn't cool in my opinion. So yeah, you know, bad video, leave a dislike on this, make some better content, man. Take it easy.